In the early decades of family therapy, practitioners typically defined themselves by a single school of thought. You worked strictly as a structuralist, a psychoanalyst, or a behaviorist. Over time, clinical training has shifted away from these rigid boundaries toward a broader framework of theoretical integration. Many clinicians attempting this shift fall into the trap of eclecticism. This approach functions like an unstructured concert program, where a therapist might use Gestalt work in one session and strategic techniques in the next, selecting tools without a clear underlying logic. Selecting disconnected techniques creates a severe ethical problem. Every therapeutic model carries its own values and vision of the human condition. When a clinician piles these tools together without examining their roots, they risk broadcasting contradictory messages to the client. Structural integration requires the opposite of random sampling. To be effective, the therapist must synthesize divergent theories into a unified, reliable framework that ensures every intervention serves a consistent goal. James Bitter identifies a blueprint for this synthesis called the 7 lenses. These lenses provide the diagnostic criteria needed to build a multidimensional assessment of a family system. Bitter compares standard assessment to looking at a puppy through a window. You can generate excitement by looking, but you need more information to understand it fully. Getting closer to observe how it moves and handles change provides the necessary depth. Without a rigorous meta-framework to bind clinical observations together, practitioners risk harming the family system by applying interventions that are based on unexamined or conflicting assumptions. Building a unified framework requires repairing a historical division in psychotherapy, the split between treating the isolated mind and analyzing group mechanics. Psychoanalysis traditionally focused on the isolated mind, mapping out internal traumas and unconscious desires. In this model, the surrounding family often functioned as little more than background characters. Conversely, early systems theory treated the family like a structural machine. Practitioners analyzed the rules and roles that kept the gears turning, but they often viewed the individual's inner emotional life as an irrelevant black box. Modern practice requires a bridge between these perspectives. Family dynamics are dictated by a web of private emotional histories, where group rules are constantly shaped by the individual's internal experience. To see how we can practically synthesize these theories, we are going to reverse engineer a specific clinical tool. Effective integration renders the invisible interplay between internal psychological projections and external systemic boundaries visually concrete. That tool is the wheel of influence. Adapted from the boundary models of Virginia Satir, it serves as a functional model of clinical integration that maps a client's invisible relational constellation. This diagram shows the completed synthesis wheel. It plots the client's relationships across distinct zones of intimacy, revealing exactly where specific influences sit within their psychological space. We break the tool down into its conceptual component, the anatomy of a single connection. First, the hub represents the client's core identity, the gravitational center. Radiating from it is the vector, or spoke, physically manifesting abstract emotional proximity as a distance drawn on paper. This use of spatial geometry draws directly from Virginia Satir's principles of interpersonal boundaries. The client indicates their boundary preferences by physically adjusting the length of the line. This table provides the diagnostic criteria for these boundaries. Short spokes indicate active connection, forming the client's core support structure and traits they want to integrate. Longer spokes denote necessary separation, functioning as emotional buffers to keep unwanted critical influences at bay. By translating abstract systemic rules into a tangible geographic reality, the wheel grants the client agency over their psychological space. This image directs our focus to the specific payload situated at the end of the spoke. The client identifies a person and assigns a specific descriptive adjective to them. They are mapping the trait that person brings to their life, rather than just the person alone. This is where the tool integrates object relations theory and the mechanism of psychological projection. People often cope with painful emotions by unconsciously offloading them onto other family members. This forces loved ones to carry that emotional weight for them. By capturing the adjective, the wheel maps these projections. It brings invisible habits and assigned roles into the light, where they can be observed and changed. We can verify the wheel's validity by filtering it through Bitter's lenses. Through Lens 1, the organization of systems, the clinician can diagnose whether a wheel of short spokes indicates enmeshment or if long spokes represent healthy buffering. Filtering through Lens 2, the mind as an avenue, shows how the adjectives track the internal affective reality of the individual. Finally, we apply Lens 3, developmental processes. The visual mapping prompts the client to reflect on 3 questions that force a negotiation between their historical reality and their desired boundaries. By combining structural boundary mapping with the tracking of internal projections, the wheel of influence satisfies the criteria of a unified meta-framework. However, a clinical tool is only as effective as the practitioner wielding it. A foundational requirement for integration is the clinician's own objectivity. The tool we just deconstructed functions as a single node within a much larger, multi-generational system. The practitioner is the primary instrument of change, and they walk into the room with their own history. To be effective, every clinician must navigate 2 maps, the macro map and the micro map. The macro map is the sweeping historical lineage of the profession. It traces the theories of pioneers like Alfred Adler, Murray Bowen, and Virginia Satir, providing the structural knowledge needed to treat a family. The micro map is the practitioner's own family origin. It includes their emotional ties, unresolved history, and the traditional values they inherited. If a clinician leaves their micromap unexamined, they may unconsciously project their own unhealed family history onto the client's system. This is why Murray Bowen emphasized the differentiated self. A differentiated practitioner can stay calm and objective, ensuring they do not get sucked into the client's emotional reactivity. Virginia Satir achieved this through a physical centering process. She taught practitioners to slow their heart rates through deep breathing to achieve true therapeutic presence. This centering involves intentionally clearing the mental screen of first impressions. It ensures the practitioner is responding to the client's present reality rather than the ghosts of their own past. Before designing integrative tools, practitioners must deliberately locate their own coordinates on both the historical and personal maps. Clinical integration merges systemic mechanics, the depth of the mind, and the conscious, differentiated presence of the practitioner into an ethical framework for healing.